Good evening and welcome to Legal Tech Live, episode 58. I'm your host, Nick Rishwain, and I'm here tonight with Jennifer Hart. Jennifer is the CEO of Connective Counsel, and she's going to go into that in just a minute, but just a brief background on Jennifer. I want to get into her background before we get into Connective Counsel. Jennifer, I couldn't find a really detailed summary of your background. On LinkedIn, I have recovering attorney turned legal technology and innovations leader, creating the future of attorney-client interaction, which I think is a pretty good summary. Looks like you are following along with some of our other guests, or maybe leading with some of our other guests as far as the recovering attorney turned legal tech.
Yep.
Ivan is the recovering attorney. I'm the never having practiced attorney. So you've joined.
Well, one of you got it right, and I'm going to lean with you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to learning about you and about Connective Counsel. Let's start with your background while I push this live to Facebook. Tell me about yourself.
Great. So I'm Jennifer. I am the child of two attorneys who graduated from college in 2009 with not a clue of what I wanted to do with my life. I went to Princeton for my undergrad. I was a chemistry major, but I was the sports editor of my college daily newspaper. Ran the gamut in terms of I was never someone that fit in a box, and went to college to do chemistry thinking maybe technical writing, maybe patent law, wasn't really sure. My thesis advisor, when I did a whole it was a nanotechnology thesis in the chemistry department. He's like, really, you can't go to grad school? I'm like, I'm going to grad school. I'm going to law school.
Right.
So, got to law school, sort of tried to figure it out. My parents, like I said, both lawyers. My mom's a big law attorney. She was a partner at Jones Day for basically my whole life. And then my dad was a solo. He was at a small firm in the early 90s, and then he was a solo, basically all of my childhood into my...
Wow, so you had the two, almost polar opposites in the practice as examples at home.
Yeah, so it was just they led very different lives in terms of their practice. And, so I had a pretty good exposure and understanding of what I was getting myself into. My father tried to talk me out of it, from day one. He was like, don't take the LSAT. Don't go to law school. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I had the same experience. From my father.
My mom was like, just because you take the LSAT doesn't mean you have to go to law school. Just because you go to law school doesn't mean you have to practice law. Just because you start working at a law firm doesn't mean you have to keep practicing at a law firm. And that appears to be where I fell off the legal track. It took me that long, but
not entirely though. It doesn't look
like
no.
That's where, exactly. So, so I graduated
the practice track,
exactly. So I graduated in 2012. Market's still recovering. Moved from my hometown in Columbus, Ohio, up to Cleveland, Ohio, at a firm, and started doing bankruptcy and creditors' rights work at a mid-sized law firm that. Corman Jackson & Krantz, KJK, which will continue to play a huge role in this story.
Okay.
And they brought me on in beginning of 2013, and bankruptcy and creditors' rights was a practice area that is just ripe for automation, right? It's very repeatable, and when you're a first-year attorney who this is the first thing that you're doing, you're going to make a lot of mistakes because you're going to forget to update pleadings. You're going to forget to do all these things. And I made every mistake. I am the first one when first years came in the door, I was like, look, you're going to make a mistake. Let's just get past that. Let's accept that you're going to make a mistake and figure out how you're going to fix it.
Okay.
And so I realized readily that I needed to start relying on technology.
Yeah.
Always been a fan of technology, but one of the partners I was working for, she was a Chapter 7 bankruptcy trustee. The software gave us all the tools we needed. It was just hard to use. So it took me, and I tend to think I'm pretty savvy at this, started using, Creative Cloud Suite when I was in high school, pretty savvy at figuring out software, and it took me a good long while to figure out, like, oh, we can just like one click button generate these reports, generate these pleadings. We just have to code them. And so that's where my like legal tech passion really started, because we built out this whole suite of forms, and I took the practice from being very unprofitable to being profitable. As a result.
As a first year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they were losing money hand over fist. And just because it was just repeating the same things and taking, you know, what should have taken 30 seconds out of the software was taking 30 minutes because you had to check every single thing every single time. And all of a sudden we were close to profitable, and then we were profitable. And so, you know, that really gave me an insight into the way the practice was changing and what needed to be done. Now, I knew I didn't want to do creditors' rights. So the firm was very gracious and found a new place for me, which was initially writing Cleveland's bids to host one of the political conventions in 2016, and then working on all of the contracts around that. And again,
interesting.
Yeah, so
that would be kind of cool. I mean, that was
awesome. I mean,
yeah, that's almost like more grant writing type stuff than it is practicing law, except for the contract stuff. That's pretty cool.
So we did 2 different bids. The Republicans were on about a 4 or 5 month track ahead of the Democrats in the process. We wrote the Republican National Convention bid, me, the now managing partner of the firm, and a couple other associates in the firm at the time. We wrote it in about 12 days. It was like 300 pages long, and we served as the quarterback, and we gathered everything, and all those years on newspaper were put to good use.
That's fantastic. And let me pause you right there. We've got Joanne Kroll watching, and we've got Colin Levy watching. And so I want to thank you both for being here. Guest tonight is Jennifer Hart, the CEO of Connective Counsel. And we're getting a little background on her. If you have any questions, please ask them in the Facebook page and the Facebook group. And Jennifer, if I'm looking away, I'm not ignoring you. I'm watching what the questions are that are popping up. So.
No problem. Hi, was it Joan or Joanne?
Joanne and Colin.
Hi, Joanne and Colin. So I promise that this story about the convention is relevant.
Okay.
Not just, digressing. So Cleveland ends up winning. The firm ends up being the counsel to the host committee, which means that's the organization that's not actually putting on the convention, but what their role is, and it's a federally regulated role, is to promote the city that's hosting the event, because this is a big event. It's the second largest media event after the Olympics. And so their role is really a public service role to promote the city that's hosting this, like to make this a positive impact for the location that it's happening in. So we ended up counsel there, and there's just a ton of contracts that end up resulting from that. And during that process, and this is where Connective Counsel starts to be born, is we realize that there's a couple things that we're starting to realize really need to happen. And that's, number one, we need way more mobile access to the documents, because the CEO of the host committee, who's also the CEO of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the general counsel and treasurer of the host committee, who's also the managing partner of a law firm and trustee of a major trust, they're not at their desks, and they're being asked to review these things and understand them on the fly. And so we need something that's really, really mobile friendly. So
I'm imagining, because this is a fast-paced time and the preparations, and not everybody's just doing this from their desk. They got to go out and they got to meet with vendors and. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's why they needed the access. So all of a sudden, this need for mobile access is exploding with our client, with a number of clients, but particularly it's becoming very apparent in this instance. And so while the firm was organized in our document management system, we didn't have a great way to share that with these clients who needed access, whether they were at their desk and just searching through email, but they needed a really simple, easy to use system. And the systems that the firm had in place and the systems that we had looked at over the years just didn't fit that bill. They weren't comfortable for the client. They weren't mobile friendly. They were just really hard to use for the lawyers, hard to use for the clients. And so nobody ended up using them. We had a portal and we were populating it, but
the client, everybody was like, I can't remember my password. Will you resend it? And I was, so, it was just a really clumsy experience. And that really started cementing for me and for the managing partner of KJK, John Pinney, who was as I mentioned, the treasurer and general counsel, that we really needed to start rethinking what it looked like to provide excellent client service, especially in the middle market.
And explain what you mean by middle market. So mid-size.
Yeah. So mid-size firms serving, middle market businesses. So we tend to define that as anywhere from a firm of like maybe 15 to 100, 20 to 100, even up to 250. You still have a lot of mid-size elements in a firm up to that size.
And a lot of mid-size clientele, I'm guessing.
And a lot of mid-size clientele.
Small and mid-size clientele.
Yeah, small and mid-size clientele, anywhere from, 5 million to 150 million, in revenues is where we tend to put that peg, but, it can look different.
Sure.
You have a client that has 150 million in revenue, but like nowhere near the number of employees you would expect for that. So these are all things that we've been measuring over the years. And so it's hard to put brackets, but those are the brackets we tend to use to talk about mid-size. Not somebody, especially in the mid-size space for a small and medium business, maybe they have a general counsel, but it's one person. But most often they don't have a general counsel. They're using their trusted lawyer as a trusted advisor as their outside general counsel. And when you're doing that, a lot of clients want to look at like a fixed monthly fee for their legal work when they're using you as your outside lawyer. They don't want to be afraid to call you. You don't want them to be afraid to call you. So you start putting together these general counsel programs. Well, if you're spending a lot of time hunting down documents, you're going to be losing a lot of potential revenue because of that. So all of these things start to happen, and we really start to realize that there's a gap in our market that we can't seem to fill with the technology that's available. And so we start looking. And, it's a long process. We like to say Connective Counsel, this was 5 years in the making before we even really got going, because we tried a number of iterations internally before we realized that what we needed and what we wanted and where we wanted to go.
Yeah, fantastic. And I want to thank Chase Hurdle for joining us. I don't know if you're familiar with Chase from the ABA Innovation Center or Center for Innovation. He's joining us. So Chase, thank you for joining in. If you guys have any questions, please ask. I'm excited about this, Jennifer, because I think you guys are probably one of our first guests to really concentrate on the mid-size firm. We've had both the big law and the solo and smalls. This is, I can't remember one who was more focused in that mid-level and working on what would have previously been considered a client portal. Maybe it still is called a client portal, but that feels...
We try not to call it a client portal because it has such a bad rap.
Yes. Okay. And now I didn't demo. I haven't demoed it yet, but is it app-based? Is this an app-based system?
Yeah. So the platform is, there's a web-based side for the law firm.
Okay.
The content management from the tech side, call it a content management system. Sure. That's managed on the web for the client. And then we have an iOS app, on the web for the lawyer. So they control everything there, all the dashboards that we have from an insight perspective, all the access for the documents, all of the business process improvement pieces that we have from an automation perspective. So those pieces are all controlled on the web by the lawyer. So it's anywhere, anytime access, totally responsive, do it on your phone while you're on the go. Then we have our iOS app piece. We found when we looked at the mid-market from a client perspective was about 85 to 90% of the C-suite users in that market that we were looking at were using iOS. And so we wanted to develop native and serve that market, because what we were what all of us on the leadership team had experienced was when you try to develop for both, especially when we started to develop this and started thinking about it, was we had very negative experiences with those apps that had been developed for both environments.
Okay. Yeah. And that's been, I mean, I've had that experience with, you could have that experience with a game on,
Yeah,
built for one, and you just or you have it on a social media app and it's good on one and not good on another. So I see where you look, if you guys really grow and expand this, and you find a bigger bigger slice of the pie is using Android, then you can build that out at a later date. But it sounds like you have
absolutely. And we know that if we have a number of features that might be hits with lawyers who do a more consumer facing practice, where more of the market is as our studies have shown us, more of the market is using Android. We do have a responsive web component for our clients to access as well, because we know from the benefit of this being developed in-house at a law firm is that I have been in constant contact with clients who want these features.
Yeah, that's nice.
If you look at the menu, like there are what I'm going to say 15 things on the menu. I think there are more than that, but there are 15 things on the menu. 7 of them were something that we came up with, and 8 of them are things that clients asked for as we were developing it with KJK. So one of those is actually bill payment. We had not put bill payment on there. This was about access to documents.
Right.
And a client goes, well, can I pay my bills? And we were like, of course you can. We will figure out a way to make that happen.
Yeah. You don't normally get the clients asking that one, so that got available.
So, things like that. There's a calendar function that got added because the clients asked for it. So there's a lot of things that were driven by client need and client desire to see on the platform. And that's where we pushed most of our efforts and energies, was really in response to those client desires. And
so tell us a little bit about what the client can access. It's on the website at ConnectiveCounsel.com. I'll post that in the group here, but if you can tell us what items, there's some interesting items that you have, including a lender item as well.
So Lender Connect is kind of a neat little feature. So I will get to that. So we have a couple, so we think of our platform as having about 3 distinct features. So we have our pure document access piece. So there's 2 different versions of that. There's a regular old files and folders, whatever flexibility your client. This is a white labelable platform. So KJK has kjk.connectivecounsel.com. You'd have rishwain.connectivecounsel.com, and it'd have your logo on the platform for the client when they accessed it. So it's fully white label. Yeah, fully white labelable. We know that it's all about branding. It's all about increasing stickiness for clients. And when you're a mid-sized law firm, you want to keep those clients with you, especially as these clients are transitioning from an older generation to a younger generation. You want to develop those relationships with your younger attorneys so that you can make that transition smooth. And especially for a new tech savvier generation that's starting to, take over these companies, they want things on their phone. So
it sounds like when you say the younger generation sounds like we're talking about some of these are family businesses, right? And it's going from one
a lot of family businesses. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
100%. So document access. So files and folders, very flexible. We have that in a couple of different locations, in a final contracts folder and also a project files folder, and then within our dashboards that we'll talk about in a little bit. Then we have our closing binder function, and we call it our binder function. So, it used to be, right, that closing binders were physical binders, record books were physical books. And people could, flip through and page through them and go from tab to tab. And that's a really nice thing. But then digitally, when we made this transition over, it was something that KJK really found a struggle with, was how do you effectively digitize that experience? There are a number of platforms out there that do some of that, but we didn't really see anything that we could easily integrate with on the platform without paying a gajillion dollars. So we ended up paying probably a year's license fee that we would have had. It was crazy. The license fee numbers were just absolutely astronomical when we were talking about figuring out how to integrate with some of the existing features that already did some of what we were talking about doing. But so we've digitized that binder experience. You open the whole closing binder. You have a table of contents. If you want to just send out the cap table, which is something that we see a lot of these joint venture deals wanting to do, What's the latest on the cap table? I just want to flip that out. What's the waterfall? I just want to flip the waterfall out. I want to look at the whole thing. I want to search the whole thing, but I just want to send this one particular section. So we developed what we call our binder function, and that works across a number of areas: estate plans, closing binders for loans, real estate, like I said, corporate records, some intellectual property records are done that way. So that feature is pretty robust and throughout the platform. So that's just the document access piece.
Okay.
So our second piece that we talk about is our dashboards, and that's our insight piece. So that was where the feedback came from clients saying, I need to understand more about what's going on I have multiple matters with you, and I want to know more about what's going on with those matters. So we came up with this idea of a timeline. And, you think about, it's pretty basic project management, really. I was working with the developers. They were like, you don't have project management? I'm like, not really. You would be amazed.
Managing counsel, managing attorneys.
By how little project management happens within the practice of law.
Yeah.
It's definitely needed. So these timelines that show clients where you are, where you're going, where you've been, and then you have access to there's all the documents in one place, and then you have like a collaboration space with notes. So it's really basic right now, but it's something that.
But if I'm Nick Rishwain and I've got a concessions place I'm trying to get concessions contracts for the Republican National Convention or Democratic National Convention, and I want to see what progress Jennifer Hart is in we've got contracts or RFPs out, and I want to see where you're at. Is that what I get to do, or I get to see the 14 contracts?
So both. So the platform right now, our dashboards are static while we explore what we need to do. So there's 4 categories. Okay. So we have our deals dashboard. So that's for like M&A acquisitions and sales, real estate acquisitions, lender connects, which is sourcing debt, sourcing capital, helping law firms become more than just negotiators of contracts, but being that business partner and helping them find better terms for their loans. And providing a framework for them to work within to do that. And that
offering more of those services that CPAs have maybe been offering for years.
100%. Yeah, we like to say it's like the negotiating power of a law firm with the analytical power of an investment bank, and the relations of an investment bank who can help you, because lawyers who are finance lawyers, they have relationships with banks all over the place, and they can leverage those relationships to help their clients.
Some more full service experience.
Yeah, exactly. So that's that lender connect piece. And then we have our litigation dashboards. And these were picked because the deals are the stages are relatively static right now, rather than, you talk about, that's definitely a version 2.0 item for my matters. Where I would, as your attorney, we would say, like, these are the stages that we're going to work through on this contract negotiation. And that way you're going to know what's happening. But we wanted to prove out the concept with a couple static dashboards before we introduce the complexity of customizing them.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So But
then, yes, when you finish the contract, it does get saved into my final contracts.
It does. And I can then So, I mean, that's been a long ongoing issue for clients who, let's say the attorney-client relationship ends, and I'd like to get all my files, right? Well, now the attorney's got to copy all the information if it's not on, or they've got to digitally transfer or whatever. That's always an issue. So the client has access to this at all times. So
it is controlled by the law firm. The law firm is the one paying for it. So the law firm, the way we see it from a technical perspective and thinking about the ethics rules is, you can leave the access on and tell the clients you have 30 days to download whatever you want, and then we're turning it off. Or however many days you think is reasonable under the ethics rules, you go through and say, we're leaving it up, but this is a cost we have to bear. So, you leave it, you take it, you get just the stuff down, and we're turning it off after X days.
Okay. Well, that's fair. And that kind of takes the onus off the law firm to have to go through all that too.
Yep. And the client has the ability to add files to this as well. So like if you,
nice.
Nick Rishwin, get back a contract in your email and you're on an elevator and you have service, you just pop the up, you hit what we call the up button, the little share button in iOS, save it right in. Or if you're on your desktop, you can drag and drop into the web client.
So this improves the exchange of documents between the attorney.
Absolutely.
It's all stored in the client's file or the client's account for the attorney. Okay. All right. So let's talk about, you guys have been at this for a little bit of time. You've been, it looked like you were the director of innovation back in 2018, early 2018. So you guys have been around a little while. We usually do real early stage, like under 12 months, but I looked around and it looks like you guys have had a slow growth while you're proving the concept. So it's just so accepted the it's like they're early, but you've been putting a lot of effort in. So tell us about. It hasn't really, is it in the market yet, or is it?
So we're really just officially hitting the market.
Okay.
So that's really what's happening, is that we were, when we were still sitting inside of the law firm, we were a division, and that's when I was the director.
Okay.
And
you weren't a separate, entity.
We weren't a separate entity really at that point. It was like a division of KJK, and I was the director of innovation, sitting within that space. And at that point, it was actually a completely different concept.
Oh,
it was actually around being outside general counsel in Ohio. Like it was a completely different concept at that time.
Right.
Where we were talking about that, and we're actually still like, we still take space in the law firm because they've been our major, they're our investor, and so they're like, why pay rent? We have this open space, take it. I was like, great, happy to have it. Don't really want to pay rent, so that's their capital contribution, right?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's fantastic. They're an investor, but they see and what I was actually part that I really liked was it started off as one thing and it's become something else.
Yeah, it really is. When I came into the tech world from the law firm world, I learned the word iterative.
Yes.
I like to say now, like, so like the law firm, it's funny because like we get their client, we're helping the law firm get their clients onboarding. And some of these clients are huge legacy clients, 25 years worth of files. And it's like wrapping our arms around how to get it organized and like what makes sense and how far back do we go, and like all of these questions, which are very legitimate and have been great questions to answer. What's funny as we're going through it, they're like, well, we can't put them up until everything's on there. I'm like, no, that's never going to happen. You're never going to go.
Right.
So I'm like, let's take an iterative approach. Let's do 3 matters and then move on. And so this everybody at the law firm, whenever I say an iterative approach, they're like, okay, you with your techie words.
It is a favorite of the tech community. It's just a whole different jargon from the legal community.
It is 100%.
So when did you officially launch? You're out there looking for clients?
So we're out there we're in a closed beta right now.
Okay, closed beta.
So we're looking for firms that right now, either fit a very close profile or are related, because we want to learn more about this particular market and how they need the product to work.
Mm-hmm.
And then just, learning more about, what the market is demanding in terms of integrations, in terms of, what they need to share with their clients and things like that. So it's been a learning curve. And one of the things that came out of the KJK project was we had to do like a minor facelift in the spring on the organization of the platform, because it made sense to me, but it turns out it didn't make sense to non-recovering lawyers.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. There is a difference in those in the tech community will look at certain things and how sometimes that doesn't transfer into the practice. So in a closed beta, is it beta both on the lawyer side and on the client side? So is your former law firm the only law firm who?
So we have a couple other law firms that are signed up and are coming on board.
Okay.
So that's where we are in our stage.
Okay. And then they decide which clients, or they tell their clients about it. And okay. And so it is just testing right now. How are you guys what is the plan for monetization here?
Great question. So the first piece right now is we're in the Silicon Valley, quote, give it away phase.
Sure.
So we are looking to, it's a scale, it's a volume play. So our pricing model is pretty different. We're not doing seat licenses because we know how much law firms hate seat licenses. And we know how much everybody really hates seat licenses, frankly, but law firms seem to hate them more than most people. Because they think, well, I'll just get by on a shoestring and I'll only have like 3 people signed up. And I'm like, that's really not going to make the product work.
Right.
You want more people using it and making it part of the way that you interact with your clients.
Okay.
Because if you only offer, one of the things that we learned with KJK is if you only have it for a few clients, it doesn't become something that is habitual.
Right.
And so it
sits on the shelf.
It sits on the shelf, yeah. Like, what good is it if you're not using it? And it's every client that we have using it loves it.
Okay.
And they are thrilled not only with the access that they're getting and the insight that they're getting, but the fact that the law firm is continually asking them questions about where they want things and how they want things. And it's deepening the connections in a really meaningful way because you're doing that. I always make fun of law firms because mid-sized law firms all have the same thing on their website. We're a business partner to our clients. Mm-hmm. And it may very well be true, but if you're not continually asking questions, if you're not continually getting feedback from them about what's changing and where they're looking to grow, you're not really being a business partner because you're not really looking for strategic growth with them.
So you really serve a customer relations aspect as well.
The platform is a great tool to go through and say, like, all right, what are you doing in the lending space? Like, do you have active loans that you want to put on here so that you have your note and your schedule and your mortgage and all of these documents readily available in a closing binder, even if we didn't do it? Do you want it on there? But hey, did you know that we do that? Those sorts of cross-sell opportunities then become really natural and easy. And one of the things that Connective Counsel has done is if a section is empty, every section can be turned on or off for any user or any client or frankly any firm. So if a firm says we don't do litigation at all, take it off. I'm like, all right, cool, check a box, it's gone. I
think I got us off track there on the how you're going to.
Oh, the pricing model. Yeah, we totally went off the rails.
That was my fault. I apologize.
What we're charging for it's a pay-as-you-go model.
Okay.
So if you want to put a client on it, it's $100 per year for that client in our closed beta.
Okay.
So it's a pretty low barrier to entry
mm-hmm.
From a business perspective. So, and it's a pretty easy charge to pass through to a client. So, we want
for $100 a year. I mean, that's 1/10 of an hour for maybe not 1/10 of an hour,
right?
Half hour.
You throw that on the bill as an expense, and nobody's gonna even bat an eye.
Right.
And then we have firms that are like, well, we're just gonna throw it on as a $10 technical fee on our bills. I'm like, okay, cool, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Just add a technology fee to your bill, and you're covering your costs here. You're not in violation of any ethics rules. You're passing costs through. And you do have an effort to set it up, so any minimal markup that happens is reasonable.
Right. Ah, very cool. And then that's per client, and the attorney. So the attorney gets to pass it on, or a law firm gets to pass it on, and they can scale that as much as they want. So if
exactly
available, so how do they add another client on? So
Yeah. So it's
I'm
really
in your office and I'm all right. Yeah, I do want to use this. This sounds great. How do I sign it up?
so when there's a couple level permissions. So a person with a permission level to add a client adds
Mhm.
that client adds that client company, assigns a client user. Client users can be assigned to multiple companies. So if you have a company, we PE, private equity being the case that actually drove us to put this feature into effect,
Mhm.
was we have the holding company that has a certain amount of information, but then we have the operating companies where there's a whole different set of legal information, and we don't want to commingle that. We want individual siloed spaces for each of those holding companies. So client users, so the people who are sitting at the holding company level can have access into everything, but the CEO of a holding company only has the holding company that they're running, or
Okay.
not the operating company. The CEO of an operating company only has their space. So it's multi-tenant in that way as well. So that it's pretty easy for clients to just switch between the businesses that they're operating. And for a high net worth individual, they can have their personal space, they can have their business, they can have their business, and then they can have other investments as well. And again, it all be in one place.
And what if now, as high net worth as I am, Jennifer, let's say, with my multiple staff members here, how do I add them on? And is it $100?
It's $100 per client company, not per client user.
Okay. All right.
So it's really meant,
So if
like
I
I said,
have Nick Rishwain Holdings, but then I have also Nick Rishwain Real Estate, then I'd be paying 100 for each of
we'll
those.
be paying 100 for each of those. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. And so how long in closed beta before we start seeing, how much longer do you think you need to be in this before we start going all in on sales?
We're going to ILTA
Yeah.
in like a week and a half now. So we're going to be there, and then coming out of that, we have a couple announcements that we expect to make at ILTA,
Okay.
or right before ILTA. And coming out of that, we expect to be making a pretty big push.
Okay, good, good. And then what does the financing look like? Are you out there searching for investors?
So we are currently looking within the partnership right now.
Yeah.
And then based on what they subscribe, we'll be making a decision about whether to go out and seek out investors.
Excellent. All right. Are there any huge announcements? We're coming up on about 40 minutes. It looks like it's pretty quiet in the group tonight. This happens. Some nights they're chatty, some nights they're not. This is legal tech for you. So it really depends on who's around on a Thursday night. But are there any huge announcements you'd just love to make right here and now?
Nothing I can make right here and right now. But the next time I have something big, I'll let you know.
Thanks. And you know what, we ask you as well. We always want people to let us know if we can help spread the word on something. All our guests are asked to let us know, and we'll help share it out for you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So anything that we haven't covered in the last 40 minutes that you think we should cover before we wrap up?
I guess the only thing I'd say is that one of the things that we really relentlessly focused on was ease of use. So our UI is just really amazing. I don't really have another word for it. Our UI is just gorgeous. Because we know that people don't want to use software that's confusing or clunky or hard to use. And that's the one thing that really drove, frankly, a lot of our slowness was really focused relentlessly on that UI piece until it was really picture perfect, that nobody would be confused using it.
And I'll tell you this, I've seen a little bit of what I could see online, but I have to say that there's one other guest who really stuck out in my mind, where they were in the development phase for a lot longer in a very similar situation to yours. It was a division of his marketing company that was oftentimes servicing lawyers with exhibits and things like that they spent a lot of time in essentially product development. But when he came on the show and he showed us some of that, it was very smooth. So there is something to be said about, about not pushing out there before you're ready. If you've got the runway to do it. And there's something to be said about being a division of another company that before you spin out on your own. There's some real positives with that I've seen.
Yeah, it's been great. And you can't beat the feedback of having, stellar litigators and corporate attorneys telling you exactly how they would use it, and then their clients telling you exactly how they want to use it.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Having that built-in product market fit right there is pretty nice. So beautiful UI, beautiful experience, and tell everybody where they can get in touch with you, where they can find you, where they can.
So I am on LinkedIn. I am available. You can get in touch with us on our website, ConnectiveCounsel.com. My marketing person's going to kill me because I don't remember what our Twitter handle is.
That's okay. I do. I got it for you.
Or something, I think.
Connective Counts. Just no.
Yeah, Connective Counts, because you couldn't go EL. It was too long.
Too long. And that's Counts, COUNS.
Yes. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Happy to give anybody a demo. You can sign up for a demo right on our website, actually. So directly on there's a calendar. Once you put in your email, there's a link that you can schedule directly. So
excellent. And so to find Jennifer Hart on LinkedIn, it's Hart, H-A-R-T. And the company is Connective Counsel, ConnectiveCounsel.com, on Twitter at ConnectiveCouns, C-O-U-N-S. Jennifer, thanks so much for being here. Love the energy. Love the time that you spent working on this. So as announcements come up, let us know so we can help share that out and get the word out for you. And any last words? Come and check us out.
Come check us out. Yeah.
Check out the website.
Check out the website for sure.
Use it. Sign up. And thank you once again. This has been Jennifer Hart with Connective Counsel. This is episode 58 of Legal Tech Live. Stay with us. Next week, we'll have episode 59. Jennifer, thanks so much, and I look forward. Don't disappear after the camera stops.
I won't.
All right. Thanks so much. Good night, everybody.